Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Ad Age's TV Pivot. I'm Janine Poggi, Senior Editor here at Ad Age, and thank you for returning for the second half of our event. This afternoon, you're going to hear from ad sales leaders at Fox, Discovery, and WarnerMedia. Feel free to join the conversation on our social channels by using the hashtag #AdAgeTVPivot. Next up, we have Marianne Gambelli, President of Sales at Fox. Hi, Marianne.
Hi, Janine. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Where have you been working remotely?
So we're holed up in Westchester. We kind of all left the city as quickly as we could. We have 2 full-grown children here, a dog. So we're adjusting to the new normal. But it's been some nice family time, which has been great to have.
Yeah, you never thought that you'd have your two kids back home, I'm sure.
No, I never thought that. And I don't think they're leaving anytime soon. They like having their meals cooked and their laundry done. We're back to being kids again.
Well, thanks again for joining us. Earlier this week, Fox released its fall schedule, making it the first network to actually unveil a lineup for next season. But I'm wondering, with productions paused for now, what the contingency plans are for advertisers in the fall if a show like The Masked Singer can't be shot as planned.
So, the one good thing about our schedule is that we went with 2 shows that were already in the can and completed, which were Next and Filthy Rich. So we knew we had that slate. We also have all our animation has been in production. Nothing's been paused there because they're very used to working remotely. So that's been all, really not disrupted. And then we knew we had MasterChef. So we had enough in the can to sort of support a really strong fall slate. And then obviously with the football announcement and the football schedule, we feel very confident that we can round out if something like Masked Singer doesn't come back. But we're looking at contingency plans of, do you produce in another location that studios are open? So everything's being looked at right now. So I think we're, I think we are in the best shape because we have so much already produced and ready to go.
Yeah, as you mentioned last week, also the NFL released its schedule, the plan to kick things off on September 10th. I've been talking to people in the marketplace, and I still think there's plenty of skittishness about if that will actually take place as they say it will. How are you thinking about the NFL right now? How are you thinking about the marketplace at this point? Same thing in terms of contingency plans if for some reason the NFL can't return in the fall.
So, we're working with the information we have now, right? There's so much uncertainty around everything. We're confident that we have a great schedule, and we feel that the country wants to come together. And I think live sports is going to play a role in getting us back to normal. It may look different than it's looked in the past. It may not be in front of a live audience. We're looking at all different types of scenarios. We're looking at maybe some pivotal changes as we go through it. But we feel very confident that what we have in front of us is going to happen, and we're optimistic. And, the clients, there's a hunger for live sports. We're seeing it now. We have NASCAR coming back on Sunday, and we're seeing a really strong marketplace as people want to be part of the, getting us back on the road to recovery. I think we're all in the same situation, and we all need to get together and band together to bring this country back.
Yeah, I think initially when things started ramping up, about 2 months ago, and the pandemic really took hold, we saw a lot of people just reacting, right? Marketers just quickly reacting, pulling out and reassessing their media plans. Since then, with 2 months having gone by, have things calmed down? What are you sort of seeing as it relates to how marketers are behaving at this point? Of course, I know I'm sure case by case depending upon the sector, but are you seeing any more sense of optimism, or do you think things could get worse before they get better?
No, it's funny. The first couple of weeks are exactly as you described. It was a lot of triage. Clients were, concerned about, again, we were in a situation that nobody had ever been in before, with businesses closed and not being able to, conduct a normal, transactions. And as clients pivoted, some clients did very well when they pivoted towards more digital sales and, curbside delivery and messaging change. So we saw a lot of triage, a lot of holding of money just to see what was going to happen. But now we're seeing more optimism. We've been out with our senior executives, Eric Shanks, Charlie Collier, talking to clients directly one-on-one. and everybody's planning, how to come out of this, and how do we get the economy going, and how do we get, the business started again. And that seems to be more of the conversation and focusing on now, because it's not a matter, we will open up. It's just a matter of when. And there may be starts and stops that I think we all have to be prepared for. But I also feel like we have to plan, we have to move forward. So I sense a lot more optimism and it pivoted quite quickly, actually. And we're seeing now, like I said, with NASCAR coming back this Sunday, a really, strong marketplace for live sports. I think people want that community and want that connection, right? We're all hungering for some sense of normal. And I think that's what, it symbolizes.
Yeah, as you said, it's really hard to predict, of course, when things will open up and exactly, no one has a crystal ball. You can't really, plan too much because it's hard to see out. But given that, how much business do you think reasonably can be committed during this time? Do you think we are going to operate more in a scatter marketplace or a calendar year up front? If there's so much uncertainty, even if we plan for a fall season to come back or the NFL to come back and we act and, go upon that, are, advertisers willing to commit right now?
Again, it's so hard to predict because, again, time is a lot about when. We know it will. It's just a matter of when. And, there's different categories that we know will probably struggle to make long-term commitments, but there's other categories that are doing okay and know they have to commit. There's always been an advantage to the upfront, whatever that looks like this year, we'll see. But I think clients have appreciated that. And if there is a lack of some sport because something doesn't come back the way it's supposed to, that could put a lot of pressure on the entertainment inventory. So there might be, a supply issue. So I think it's going to be what works for each category will be different. Each client will be different. Some will do more scatter. Some will look at upfront. I've heard some talk about calendar. I've heard some stop gaps. But no matter what, I think we're going to have to build a lot of flexibility into these negotiations. And I think we're all going to have to, kind of stretch our muscle a little bit and be a little creative because, again, we're all in this together and we all got to come out of this together. And I feel like, it could start, it could stop. What are the contingency plans? And I think we're all just going to have to work through it as it's presented in front of us.
What might flexibility look like moving forward? It's something that Peter Olson at A&E mentioned, Joanne Ross at Viacom CBS said, and I think we're going to hear that word probably over the next couple of weeks and months. What might new flexibility look like and mean?
It's funny because your brain immediately goes to, how to get out of stuff and how to cut back and how to, recapture dollars. And I've actually heard clients say, well, I want to expand. And what if I want to protect pricing? And, I think you're going to have to put, if things shut down again, what does that look like? So I think there's going to have to be a lot more protections in place. If people do, the upfront process and commitments, there's a lot of flexibility around them anyway, in terms of outer quarters and what you can get in and out of. So I just think we're going to have to be creative because it may be that, you're in October and something changes and you have to pivot. So flexibility could, but I've also heard clients that say, listen, I want to protect my pricing. And what if the market does go well? And, so I think it's going to take on both. It's going to take on a lot of different dimensions depending on the client and their business needs.
Do you think, and we've spoken a lot over the years about various forms of ad advancements and, advanced advertising and talking about attribution and audience buying and things of that nature. During this time, is the pandemic potentially going to impede those advancements or could be a catalyst to help move any of these things forward?
So, I feel like we've made such strides in the industry. We've made so much investment, in moving off of the old traditional demos. There's so much data out there. All the agencies have invested like over $8 billion in buying data companies. We all have our own platforms. The industry has supported OpenAP and Xandr. So I feel like if clients are stressed about spending and want more attribution or more credibility or ROI out of what they're actually spending, then that may move that ball forward. But I think it has to solve a business problem. It may give them the flexibility that they need. They have all this data. We have all this data. why would, more strategic buying may be more comforting right now, because you feel that you can justify the commitment versus a shotgun approach. So it may accelerate. The other concern I have is that we may just go back to what we know, because there's so many other issues on the table right now. But I don't think I don't see us ever going backwards, because we're too far ahead, and we're going to keep moving in that direction. And like I said, I think it could actually be positive, because people will be looking for more data around their decision making.
I do wonder, though, what you said about, the tried and true of essentially when things are really hard and people are just sort of scrambling to keep up, or businesses are just trying to stay afloat. If they know what's worked for them in the past, will there be a desire to sort of change that when they're simply just trying to get by? So I think that might be the one of the holdups in all of this.
Right. I mean, again, it depends on your business challenge. Are you just trying to create demand, and that, just to get people back into showrooms and back into retail, and, you just want that big scale. And I think our properties play really well there. Big live sports, big live entertainment. Or do you want that very precision where you're just going to go, and target your customers? So I think it'll be the spectrum, just like what clients will commit and not commit to. But yeah, I wonder the same thing, if it's just, there's going to be so much going on and so much, scrambling, that you're going to be focusing on what has worked versus trying something a little different.
Prior to all of this happening, if we would have spoken 4 months ago or 5 months ago, I think a lot of the conversation this year has been so focused around streaming and OTT, with so many new players, hitting the marketplace. How are you thinking about OTT in the streaming marketplace? You guys do have Tubi this year, the ad-supported streaming platform. How will that platform be incorporated into ad deals this year?
Yeah, we're really excited about the acquisition of Tubi. It gave us scale in the OTT space. I think, having people at home, everybody's experiencing these new platforms, finding what great content they have. The audiences are younger. The data is, great for targeting. So it gives you all the attribution around digital, but the great content and scale of linear. And Tubi kind of rounded out our portfolio. It gives us scale in the digital space. It gave us immediate impact and scale in OTT, and it rounds out our demographics, which, broadcast being just a little older. So it's a nice profile. We are bringing everything to market together, so Tubi will be part of that, definitely. And we're already having those conversations with advertisers now.
Is there still demand to experiment in those kinds of places right now? Again, like when we're talking about the tried and true and things that people are willing to do. Obviously, there's been more consumers utilizing streaming at this point, stuck at home and watching more content. But from an advertiser perspective, are they willing to sort of test the waters in places that perhaps they haven't advertised before?
Well, I think, again, the familiarity now, you've seen the growth. I think Tubi is up 30%, Hulu's up 40%. I think people are getting comfortable with the platforms. They're seeing the ad load is lighter, the engagement is better. So I think there's a lot of impressions there that may not exist as other things have come down. So I think that this will drive more viewership. I hear every advertiser that I talk to is very excited about the OTT space. They're excited about the data. These platforms know a lot about their customers or their viewers. They can marry that data with customer data, so you precision targeting, and you have great content. So I feel like this is the year that space will explode, just because I think it's going to be a great opportunity, and this allows for flexibility. And I think that there will be I think you'll be past experimentation at this point. I think we're into the adoption phase.
Long term, what do you think might be the longer term impacts on the TV industry from the pandemic?
I think that the businesses move, as you saw of the past year or so, live, big scale events. It's really what is broadcast, sort of, what we do really well. And you're seeing a shift towards a combination of immediacy, live, big impact, with this OTT. I can choose, I can pick, I can watch what I want to watch when I want to watch it. So I think those two will coexist for a long time, because I think there's a need for both. But you still see the scale of what broadcast can deliver. No one can do that.
Will the sponsorship opportunities in live change? If we think of things, even if sports go on, as planned and stadiums are empty, or, various different types of shows, if the Masked Singer can't have an audience, and, there are different things that might have to change in live regardless. Does that change how you might think about what sponsorships look like, or the different types of ad opportunities, in a different live atmosphere?
Yeah, we've been having fun with like home viewing parties. There's been lots of different sponsorship opportunities. I think we're getting used to seeing people in their homes, just like we're doing now, and that intimacy kind of feels a little bit more connection. So we've been doing lots of fun things around it, and I think you will see you will see things migrate to how to bring the viewer to the TV if there is no one live in the audience or there's no one in the stadium. So how do you bring the viewer experience? And with technology, we see how good it is and how easy it is to capture all of that excitement from the home where you couldn't do it before.
Yeah. So as you said, there might be a little bit of bright spots, some advertisers starting to come back, maybe the urgency that we saw, at the onset coming down a bit. What's the next phase of this? Are you expecting to see, or how are you hearing in the marketplace, some of the harder hit advertisers returning? What is the next phase of, how you approach the marketplace now that the sort of like triage part is over?
Again, we've done, at this point, the best thing we can do is share what we know and try to help people navigate through. So sharing our schedule, sharing what we know about sports, trying to, set up a roadmap that feels normal, right? You announced our schedule, so people know what to expect and can start planning. I think some of the categories that are really hurt are probably going to have to spend to just reignite business. So while retail has been shut down, fourth quarter is huge for retail. So, I don't know, auto has to start making their cars on the lot. We've talked to them, they've got to start moving products. So I think even though I think categories that have been impacted may have to spend more just to get their business up and running. But all of this, it's going to be case by case. We're talking to everybody on an individual basis. That's going to be our approach. It's going to be very customized. We don't see one size fits all. And we'll work with each advertiser to do what makes sense for that.
Gotcha. So, what do you think really for then you guys, as you move out of this, will be the biggest challenge?
Again, I think there's going to be we're going to all need flexibility. We're all adjusting, and we may get started.
I think we may have lost Marianne, but we will see if she comes back in a second. But in the interim, later today, you could stay tuned. We have John Steinloff from Discovery and Joe Hogan from WarnerMedia coming up in a little bit. And tomorrow we will be sitting down with NBC Universal along with the CW and a roundtable with media agencies to discuss how they are going to approach the business. And there is Marianne. She is back. I think we lost her again. Okay, so we will move on, and we have up next John Steinloff, who is the U.S. Chief Advertising Sales Officer at Discovery.
Now click out of this one. Now click out of
There's John. Hey, John.
Hi, Janine.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Great. Hi. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. You've been watching.
You've been watching. I hope you're enjoying. Thank you. Thank you. How's working remotely over there? I think you have a pretty full house over there.
Well, there are three of us and our dog in an apartment in New York City in Manhattan.
So
how are you doing with your kids? Yeah, how's it going with your kids out in Brooklyn?
We're doing okay. We're doing some homeschooling, and my husband's teaching, and all of that from our house. So it's going as everyone else is. How's it been working remotely? From the sales side, and getting business done, and sort of operating, especially in those early weeks of triage?
It's a little bit difficult because of the chaos in our team's houses and apartments. Having two people working, having kids in school, blurred lines, difficult delineation of space, not so easy to focus on the work. But despite all of that, our teams are being incredibly productive. So to their credit, they've really stepped up.
Yeah, and you guys are in New York. I expect this will continue for a bit. So how long term do you think it's possible to continue doing this for the long term in terms of, from a sales perspective, getting business done?
I think we're doing as well as we can be doing for the first 2 months of this. What we miss the most, I think, is the interaction, being together with the clients. These meetings typically don't have the same level of engagement. You don't get as many questions. You don't get the two-way dialogue going during the meetings as you're going along. It's not as many questions, but we're doing the best we can. We're having a lot of meetings every day around the country with advertisers, internal meetings, strategy meetings, and so far it's been good. But it's a real test of discipline and patience.
So last week during earnings call, the Discovery had said that U.S. advertising was pacing down 20% in April. Do you expect a long-term hit to revenue or things to get worse before they get better?
We did say that our first quarter at U.S. ad revenue was even. And we did say we made, somewhat of an unusual guidance call to say that the month of April was coming in around -20 in U.S. ad sales. And the reason for that was it was such a change from first. We felt an obligation to tell the analysts that. We also did say that May looked better than April and June looked better than May. But we said that it's fluid because of the economy. It's hard to judge the economy from 1 week to the next with everything that's going on with the reopening of the states. But if the economy is stable, or as stable as we can have it these days, we expect to have sequential improvement through the quarter and hopefully into third quarter as well.
Given that, uncertainty, it's hard to really predict what the economy will be, over the next couple of weeks and months. How do you see upfront negotiations proceeding in this kind of environment?
I think we're in for a long upfront process. I don't think it's going to be everybody shows up in June and makes their decisions and we negotiate round the clock for 30 days and 30 nights. And at the end of the process, we go home for the 4th of July with deals in hand. I don't think that's the kind of year it's going to be. Although we do have agencies and clients that are seemingly ready to sit down and do deals. There are a lot of stable categories, Janine, right now. In the Discovery key genres, food and home, finance, insurance, some of the CPG, telco, tech, DTC, a lot of these categories are stable. They're not canceling. In fact, they're adding in scatter. So there's going to be a core group of 6 or 8 key categories, I think, that have some visibility into 2021, and they'll be looking for opportunities to get deals done, not as early as in the past, but I think June, July. And then from there, I think it just flows through the year. When categories have more visibility, agencies come back and round out their negotiations for the rest of their roster.
So would that mean we would see just more business being done in scatter or perhaps more on a calendar basis?
I think we're going to get a little bit of everything this year. I think we're going to get a June, July market, maybe half of what it would normally have been. And then those of us on the sales side are going to have to make some decisions as to where do we feel the market needs to be on rate of change? What's the supply going to look like? Apparently, we're going to have an Olympics, a Summer Olympics in 2021. If all goes according to plan.
That's what I hear.
So that will take a bite out of the entertainment supply and move more into the sports supply. And then I think people looking at supply is the key. Demand will probably be there the way it's close to the way it's been in the past, but come in differently. But supply has really been the key to these markets in the last couple of years, where linear television supply has been challenged. All that has changed in the last couple of months, with everybody being home and no sports being on and news doing well.
Right.
So it's been a fascinating time to follow this business. But I think demand will be there over time. There's nothing like linear television and all of the OTT extensions that we could bring to extend reach and to bring in the younger families.
With more people home, trying to make all of these things like sourdough starters and like garden focaccias and all of these crazy recipes, and then also taking up like DIY projects, have there been new opportunities for networks like Food Network, HGTV, and some of your channels, and new opportunities for advertisers on those platforms?
I think we're playing a really important role for comfort, ideas, and inspiration, and escapism. Our content is more valuable now than it's ever been before, because the things that families can do while they're in their houses and in their backyards and garages and driveways involve things that we typically excel at, like cooking, like home projects, like automotive projects with our Motor Trend channel. So having 2 home channels, 2 food channels, an automotive channel, and the biggest channel of them all here right now is TLC, and that's a channel about unique families. It's about online dating, and it's about inclusivity. So all of these things that can be played out in the house right now work to our advantage, and we're getting 20% audience growth in April versus what we had in Jan-Feb. So it's a much better consumption situation for us because of the categories and how useful we are. People want to learn more about cooking and food. They want to be able to do home projects while they have time on their hands. And we are the best source for all of that. And conversely, the economy needs to come back a little bit more. And so people will need to get out of the houses and go back to somewhat of a normal routine for the economy to get better. But I think there's this delicate balance right now going on where there's cautiousness about going back into crowds as the country reopens. So I think TV viewing will probably slow down from a transition period, but I think over time, in the next year to 2 years, I think TV viewing will be a little bit stronger than it's been the last 2.
Yeah, we've seen those networks, the Food Network and HGTV, sort of pivot programming to do more shooting remotely, and the Food Network stars homes and things like that. What has been the reception or the demand from the advertising side? How long? I think one of the questions is, it's really interesting to see a lot of these things now, a lot of this remote video. I think there's an intimacy to it to go into like these talents' homes and things like that. Is that something though that can be sustained long term? And especially from an advertising side, is there interest from advertisers for those types of productions?
Well, I think a great example of what we're doing is the hit TV show on the weekends on Food Network called The Kitchen, where the 5 hosts of the show are cooking in their own homes, out of their pantries, out of their freezers, in almost real time. The episodes are shot very close to air. They're in the moment. They're talking about the same challenges that the people at home have to try to feed their families with, without the normal supply of groceries, and it resonates, with advertisers too. So we've adapted, and it's not just Food Network. We have a series that we're doing on HGTV that's going to be called Design at Your Door, and it's all going to be sponsored by Walmart. They're going to provide a lot of the design integration into the show, but it's going to be about people at home doing Zoom consultations with HGTV design talent. And somewhere in the hour, the design, a box arrives at the homeowner's door, and it's all the elements that they need to complete the design that they learned from on the consultation. So our programmers are being incredibly creative. We've had Joanna Gaines do some episodes from home. We've had Oprah Winfrey work from home. We've had Guy Fieri work from home. We've had Mike Rowe work from home. And our talent is really an extension of a lot of the families that just are so loyal and trusting of our talent that they love seeing them in a different light. And we even dabbled with a new celebrity. Last night on Food Network at 10 o'clock, we had Amy Schumer in a show called Amy Schumer Learns to Cook, the first of 8 episodes, which is really a food comedy shot in her home with her James Beard award-winning chef husband, Chris Fisher. So we're trying a lot of things, and I think long term you'll see more of that coming from us. But not everything has to be in a studio. Yeah. Not everything has to be super polished production values.
You mentioned that there are some categories that are still advertising, that are still doing well. Are there any categories that maybe were advertising on TV like shortly after the pandemic that have since pulled out, or others that were harder hit that have since returned?
To take the first part, Janine, I think the two categories that have been the most mixed have been automotive and retail. And I'll take retail first. Retail is broken down into essential retail and non-essential retail. In the essential categories, if you sell home products, pet products, food products, or pharmaceutical products, you can stay in business maybe with limited hours. So companies like Walmart, I mentioned as a sponsor of a new series we're doing in quarantine, but Walmart, Target, Lowe's, the Home Depot, Petco, PetSmart, these kinds of retailers are still going. They're still going strong. Their sales are up. They have e-commerce. They have delivery. And then there are some non-essential retailers whose businesses have been dark for a couple of months. And those are the ones who have had limited advertising. Automotive is another category where it's been split, where the messaging has been altered so much to be more in step with the mood of the viewer right now. And I think that's a big part of the story altogether, Jeannie. And I think one of the things that will come out of this pandemic is how nimble the advertising creative has been. And the advertisers are changing out creative to address the story from their perspective. I saw a spot last night for the first time from Progressive Insurance, where they were doing like a send-up that SNL would do on Zoom about people talking on Zoom, trying to figure out how to use it, how to use the technology. So I think the advertisers, without having production companies in business, they're shut down. They're being very resourceful with stock footage, B-roll, iPhone shot footage, music, graphics, voiceover to try to adjust the creative. And I think what may come out of this is hopefully we never have anything like this to happen again, but other things that happen in society could be more reflected in very quick turnaround creative for ads. And that might make the whole ad experience a lot better. We always want the ad experience to be better. We want the audiences to be engaged. So I think that may be, not only are we adjusting our content to be shot in people's and talents' homes, but I think the advertisers are doing an incredible job of that too. And the engagement for the ads is very high.
Yeah, I think one of the things that over the last couple of years has been discussed a lot is sort of the context of where ads run in shows, and is there a way to sort of make them be more like seamless in terms of storylines and things like that? Could this be a catalyst for more of those types of opportunities?
Yeah, I think the advertisers are telling stories from their lens about how their companies have adapted. And I saw an ad recently, all animation. It was just from JP Morgan online banking, and not everybody understands how to do online banking. So they were just talking about scanning a deposit, a check you get. So I think the story really is, what can you do while you're in your home, and how can advertisers sell you products that you can use, that you can buy and get delivered and use while you're in your homes, banking being one of those things. And it's been a very positive experience watching live linear commercials and watching a lot of TV, a lot of live linear TV, and seeing ads that have engagement that you wouldn't normally get because they've integrated themselves into the stories and telling people about their companies in new ways.
Yeah, John, you and I have spoken about different types of advancements in advertising, things that perhaps even this year would have been front and center for, your pitch, things like attribution, or moving away from demographics, moving, beyond the 18 to 49, 25 to 54. Are those things still going to resonate in this kind of marketplace? And how are you going out there talking about, moving away from demos and some of these other ththings?
Well, we know that there is a long list of asks coming our way from the agencies and the clients, and flexibility probably at the top. I've been watching, your interviews already, and there's been a lot of talk about flexibility, and we expect that, and we have to be good partners when it comes to that. But I think there's asks that are going to come in the other direction too. While we're sitting down with our partners in the next couple of months to talk about next year, and one of the things that I'm a big advocate of is buy TV for what TV is really good at, not for what TV is not good at. TV is not really good at reaching people under 35. Most people subscribe to cable are over 35. And that could change over time. Our business will evolve, and Our channels will become more apps, and there'll be more a la carte delivery of our services. We'll see the big bundles survive, but we'll see other ways to distribute content. But my opinion is that the demos are too young, that advertisers are buying too young. That's what created the supply problem in the first place. I think we got to stabilize this business by selling television the way digital is sold. Most of our digital business, we have a $500 million digital business here at Discovery in ad sales, and a lot of that is sold on 2+ viewers.
Right.
So why can't linear television be sold on 2+ viewers, or at least 25+ viewers? What TV is good at? The audiences are very valuable. People in their 50s and 60s are very, very important consumers, but typically not part of the currency.
Do you think there'll be a willingness to do that this year, or will that impede some of those, or this impede some of those efforts?
I think there'll be trades. I think this sets the tone for a very different type of upfront negotiation. And one of the things that we're hearing from advertisers is, are you willing to cut back on commercial time? So you could see a trade coming where we say, we'll do less ads per hour, but you buy us on a demo that's more appropriate.
So it'll be a lot of more give and take than perhaps we normally see on any given year.
I think so. I think this is a new day. We do about 80% of our upfront business in the June market, and about 20% of our upfront business in the October-November market for calendar cycle. So one of the questions that's come up from a lot of the agencies, trade associations have asked, would you be willing to rebalance from an 80-20 to something like 50-50 or 60-40? It's really up to the clients when they want to move their money. There are risks associated with moving early, with moving late, with moving in scatter. So all of us on both sides of the desk are going to have to assess those risks. But I fully expect a delay in the marketplace, and I wouldn't be surprised if for cable, normally 80-20 turns into something like 60 in the fall and 60 in the spring and 40 in the fall.
So this would have been the first year that Discovery was actually doing its upfront presentation during what has historically been known as the broadcast upfront week. But of course, that's changed over the years. But normally you guys go out in around April, if I'm not mistaken, to have your pitch. This year would have been this week, would have been today?
Morning. Yeah, I would have been getting off the stage a few hours ago, so I'm on your stage instead.
Yes, you're on our stage. Well, we're happy you're here. But for next year, do you think the upfronts, these types of presentations will go on next year? Do you think there'll be a new look at the presentations and perhaps how they can be executed?
I think they'll be back. I think we'll be back in May as an industry. The advertisers show up. They fly in from all over the country. The agencies show up. It's somewhat of a celebration, not just from the industry, but even consumers. I don't think we want to give up that spotlight, a bright spotlight that shines down on Lincoln Center and Carnegie Hall for that 1 week in May. And I miss it. I wish we were doing it right now, but I think it's too big of an opportunity for the advertisers and the networks to give up. So I think we'll be up a year from now. I have every reason to believe you'll be Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. We'll be in those theaters.
Great. Well, thanks, John. I appreciate you being on our stage today, and thanks for joining us.
It was my pleasure, and I hope everybody out there stays well, stays careful, and look forward to seeing you in person soon.
You too. Be well.
Okay. Thank you.
Next up, we have Joe Hogan, Executive VP of Sales and Marketing at WarnerMedia. Hi, Joe.
Hi, Janine. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm good. Thanks for joining us. Where are you huddled at this point?
I am in Florida. My wife and I got fortunate. We were actually down here for a long weekend when things changed for the foreseeable future, and so we're down here enjoying a little bit of the sunshine, but certainly miss our place in New York.
So it's an interesting time, Warner entering the marketplace. Of course, for everyone, we're dealing with the pandemic, but also it's been a year of a lot of change internally at the company. How is that impacting the sales side? Especially in this environment that's so uncertain.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a year of a lot of change, and the change has been welcome. It was good for us to change. It was great to see the teams embrace change. Of all the things that have changed, I'm most excited about our alignment with Xandr. When you put the WarnerMedia assets together with the Xandr assets, you begin to see how complementary they are. It allows us to have, I would say, more holistic or robust conversations with our agency and client partners. So that's been really encouraging and very exciting. I personally have been super anxious for all the right reasons to get that underway.
What does that look like? What does going to market alongside with Xandr, what does that mean for brands? What can they do now that perhaps they couldn't have done a year ago? And what are some of the new opportunities that will be in place because of that?
Sure. So I'll take those in sections if you'll allow me. What it looks like is uh, almost when we got together for formal education, training, introductions, so that everyone knew who was who and what were the products. It was an extensive and exhaustive handful of days. And it reminded me a lot like that first day of school where everybody's, trying to get from classroom to classroom to understand how they learn how to navigate things, and they're excited and they're talking about where they just were and what they learned. And there was a real buzz to that, which I have not seen. So that was a very positive sign. So internally, it looks a lot like excitement to have new teammates and new products to learn, and then begin the process to the second part of your question about understanding what that means to our clients and how our clients can be educated about the full suite of products. There are many Xandr clients that didn't necessarily know everything about WarnerMedia, and there were certainly WarnerMedia clients that didn't know everything about Xandr. And then there is that big group of clients that are in between, which is the bulk of what we do, and they're excited to look at things like flexibility, which is an important word at this moment in time. But flexibility for us has new meaning under what I would say is more traditional times, and then new meaning under the uncertain times that we're in now. And it means that we can look at an advertiser's investment across a much fuller suite of products that represent multiple layers on the funnel. So that is exciting, and that's candidly where we are now, Janine, is in multiple conversations with agency and client partners together in the room to understand what it means to be part of a more holistic conversation. And if I might add, that also includes our partners at AT&T Enterprise, and a lot of discussions around connectivity and 5G and how that is going to help brands connect with customers, connect with employees, and certainly navigate the new operations and logistics that they face.
So I want to talk about a couple of those things. On the connectivity side, that's definitely something that I haven't heard before. What can brands potentially do from the AT&T, business side now that you weren't offering in the past, or what does that look like?
Sure, it's a newer conversation for us, but it's a conversation that we've had with multiple players for the better part of a year now. And the conversation takes on some different elements, but at its core, it takes on our ability to not only help advertisers get their messages out. It also involves us being able to enhance an advertiser's existing messages with our content. It obviously involves amplification of that content across a multitude of platforms. And then the connectivity piece comes in. And for certain advertisers, it takes on a complete digital transformation. For other advertisers, it takes on the ability to use our content using 5G and other products from AT&T Business to reach their customers. But so there's a few ways it manifests itself, but I would say most common is what it means for brands as the technology ultimately changes at scale from 4G to 5G, just like brands entertained what it meant to go from 3G to 4G.
Gotcha. You mentioned flexibility, in there before, and the difference in flexibility and the ability to use, perhaps Xandr to help power that flexibility. What does that mean? What opportunities or what things can you do to help with that kind of flexibility, coupled with Xandr?
Sure, that's a great question. If it's okay, I'll break down flexibility a little bit. There's traditional flexibility in our business, which is flexibility around things like options or flexibility around investments across a portfolio. And then there is new definitions of flexibility that are creeping in to the conversations now, and we welcome those discussions full stop. And so with Xandr, it allows us to have flexibility with everything from addressable. It allows us flexibility to do both national communications and national schedules with heavy ups in local markets. It allows us to have flexibility in terms of buying audiences and behavioral targets versus traditional demos. And it allows us, quite candidly, the fluidity part of flexibility to allow advertisers to look at our portfolio in total and experiment if there's things that they haven't learned about yet, or to double down after that learning takes place and find one area of our portfolio that perhaps works a little bit better for them than another area. So that's I think what it sort of means from both sides of the equation here.
What do you think is the willingness from advertisers right now in the current, climate to actually experiment and test these type of things, and all these advancements that WarnerMedia has been talking about, that Xandr has been talking about? Is now the time that brands are going to say, okay, let me try something new?
Boy, I think at first glance you would say no, maybe it's a time just to go back to, what you've known so far. But what we're seeing is exciting and encouraging, because we're seeing a number of brands experiment in ways that they might have found even a couple of months ago to be very uncomfortable. Those are brands that are jumping into branded content and doing some things on a live basis with us across areas of our portfolio. It's brands that are jumping in and saying, hey, could we now look at talking to you about what we can do across the entire landscape. Many brands that had not historically leaned in on branded content are leaning in across Fullscreen, Ignite Studios, and Courageous. And then there are brands that are experimenting with new platforms and networks with us that they have not historically invested in. We see people shifting from entertainment into news to look at capturing all those viewers that are so much watching CNN right now on a digital and linear basis. So it's taken on a wide variety of things, but it's been both, I would say, satisfying, but also appropriately challenging to have so many brands willing to experiment right now. I think brands know that if they can learn through this uncertain era that we're in now, that they have a shot to come out the other end thriving, where their initial expectations might have been, hey, let me survive this. But now that we're in an extended period of a new normal, we're seeing many brands saying, okay, how can I accelerate during this time and use it as a chance to learn?
Yeah, you mentioned CNN. What does the news marketplace look like right now? Typically, sometimes you see some advertisers shy away from, certain types of news and things like that. What has been the behavior thus far?
Yeah, we are very fortunate. We're seeing a tremendous uptick in our digital platform for CNN, for the app, for CNN.com. And that is nothing short of extraordinary. And we're appreciative of everybody that's using those platforms to get their news and information. And then on CNN, as you know, that is also exploding and has been now for for quite some time. It's where people are coming to get up-to-date news and information. And, for us, we're seeing many advertisers that were, I would say, more interested in traditional entertainment parts of our portfolio say, gee, now's the time for me to get onto CNN, to take advantage of the large size of the of consumers, and also they're finding that it's just fine for them as a place to be. So I think that could be one of the learnings come out of this, is that we have a spot for advertisers. CNN covers a lot of different areas in any given day, and I think more advertisers are finding what they're comfortable with across those platforms.
Yeah. How is WarnerMedia navigating the absence of live sports? Obviously, the NCAA tournament was the bigger hit for you in March. But looking out, sort of how are you dealing with this? Where were you able to shift money towards for advertisers who wanted to be in there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I miss my live sports personally. I'm super excited about the match that's coming up at the end of this month, and I'll keep who I'm rooting for to myself, because I know there's a lot of fans.
There's a lot of Woods, Phil Mickelson rematch, of course.
Yes, it is Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson, Peyton Manning, and Tom Brady. So I'll keep my allegiance to myself, but I'm looking forward to that. And there is a lot of demand against that opportunity, which we're grateful for. But to your early part of your question, we have initially, getting through the I would say the shock of how unsettled things became so quickly, and then understanding that we had to move on, and brands were looking for that sports viewer. We've utilized the depth and breadth of our entertainment portfolio and our news platforms to help advertisers find that viewer. We've also used the depth and breadth of the Xandr portfolio to help advertisers and brands find that viewer. So we're super fortunate to have a deep portfolio, a deep library, and we are able to utilize our insights to help advertisers find that viewer. But we know that a lot of us are looking forward to sports coming back at some point, and we'll be ready then as well.
Are there contingency plans if seasons get delayed or if things don't come back altogether? Like from your end, how are you thinking about that if some of the live sports come back in the way maybe we're anticipating?
Yeah, I would say we're in not to be facetious, but we're in a contingency plan right now. And so you're seeing it in action. We will continue to work with our league partners to be ready when they're ready. We know fans will be more than ready. But until that point, we'll be patient, and we'll continue to use the depth of our portfolio to entertain our fans.
And, of course, HBO Max and streaming, it's a big part of conversations. HBO Max will debut, of course, not with ads initially, but how are you thinking about the streaming landscape? How are you preparing for thinking about like advertising in the streaming world, especially with such a, high profile debut of the OTT platform coming?
Yeah, we're super excited about May 27th. That is the launch of HBO Max, and there is so much anticipation. Even though we're not all gathered together in our traditional offices, it's palpable. The teams are excited. There's a lot of countdown clocks that I see on a video conference calls. So we're certainly very excited about the 27th, and that will be the SVOD product. As for the AVOD advertising product, that's going to be an early 2021 opportunity, and we're in discussions with all of our agency and client partners. They're excited as well, and those discussions will continue over the course of third quarter and into the fall, and certainly we'll be ready, and we'll be partnering for early 2021. But to give you a little specificity, the conversation's really turning to our early learnings from a limited commercial environment. What did we learn now in our 5th year of reducing commercial load on True TV? Where do we see high areas of attentiveness, high areas of recall, high areas of likability, and how can advertisers get even further embedded with our fans and fan franchises. So we're very excited about it.
So are opportunities out there in the upfronts for, packaging this in, or is this something that's being sold later?
Yeah, a couple of months ago, I might have given you a different answer when the world looked pretty normal, but now everything is being discussed at every moment. So, as you know, we're seeing that that shift of traditional broadcast upfront players, and then you had traditional calendar players, and then you had multi-quarter scatter players, and those ratios are certainly going to change bucket by bucket, and it requires us to have conversations with advertisers across any of those investment horizons, which we're happy to do. And we just want to be rooted in whatever horizon works best for them. And as you can imagine, for those advertisers that are looking into that horizon of, second and third quarter next year, perhaps even as early as first quarter, we're in discussion. For those that would be in scatter calendar, we're in discussion. So we're ready. They're ready. No matter what length of time they want to talk about.
What do you think might be one or two of the long-term implications to the TV ad business from the pandemic?
Yeah, if I could give one internal and one external, if that's okay. Surprisingly enough, we have found that a meeting that we established early on, work from home, was everyone gathering across all disciplines for a short half hour in the morning to start our day and simply to share what's going on. What do people need to know? What is mission critical for their day? And that meeting has been wildly well received. And there's a lot of people on that meeting, but folks are asking for us, no matter what happens, to keep that meeting. So I think the work from home environment has forced us all to be, I would say, more thoughtful communicators and more thoughtful about who needs to know what, and what information they need to do their job and to be empowered to do their jobs. So that's a one that's high up on the list for all of us at WarnerMedia. In terms of what this will change for the business, I'm lucky, and I think all of us are lucky, to be in a business that does change so much that you're not often faced with the same old. And I would say some early indicators are that agencies and client partners are really liking, as are we, the fact that we can be so much more immediate with their opportunities and perhaps even challenges. And we have not missed a beat, nor have our agency partners, in terms of schedules, trafficking of schedules, adjustments to schedules, conversations about branded content, conversations about audience and data and analytics. So I think that we've all found that we can be more immediate, and I hope that continues.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Be well.
Bye.
That's it for day one of Ad Age's TV Pivot. Thanks to our sponsors, Facebook, Roku, Viacom CBS, and WGN America. Join us tomorrow at 11 a.m. to hear from sales leaders at NBC Universal, AMC Networks, the CW, and Univision. And we will also speak with agency leaders from Horizon Media, Omnicom, and Magna Global to get their view on the TV market. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.